If this isn't the Matrix, then what is it? And many people are going to think of science as the answer. But when you look at the practice of science, it is testing the video game rules. Now, we sophisticatedly call it science and wear lab coats and look all important and intelligent. But science is the testing of the rules of the physics engine, as well as the properties of the matter that surrounds us all the time and all the additional phenomena, chemistry. We are back engineering the game. That's what doing the science observations is. It's testing the game. How does the game work? How does the environment work? So we created the measuring systems to express numerically and symbolically our findings. But make no mistake, it is testing the game engine and back engineering it so that we don't have to think of the game. We call it science. And it's so profound. Math isn't necessarily the truth. It also isn't necessarily not the truth. But when you think about it, most people believe in base 10, others base 12, some binary, some hexadecimal, some standard decimal. And what I mean by base 10, just in case you're not into these lingos, is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But then, there's a lot of people that say if you do the math by base 12, you get all the real answers. We have 12 months in a year, and we used to have 10, but then it became 12. But then others say, well, really, binary is the only way to go. But if we don't have the right math system, how do we know we're doing it right? And this concept of math being wrong came to me when I saw this quote that some people say it was wrongly attributed to Ben Rich, but I always leave it in the back of my mind, where he says, we now have the technology to take ET home. No, it won't take someone's lifetime to do it. There is an error in the equations, and we know what it is, and we now have the capability to travel to the stars. So the key line is there is an error in the equations. So we're all using the wrong math, but Lockheed Skunk Works has the right equations, and that's why they're able to create all these fascinating aircraft. And I'm not saying that space is real or is a real place you could visit. The point of this is to say we might have been using the wrong math. If this isn't an advanced video game, then what is it? Atheists give me that defeatist, we're just an insignificant speck of dust from an eternal explosion. Christians give me the, we are God's children. But what does the everyday person believe? Someone that's not subscribed into the science, religion indoctrination or the religious indoctrination, just a regular secular person. What does the everyday person believe all of this is? Because if it isn't a game, if it isn't a computer simulation, what is it? Everything you do, every way we try to define the world can be looked at as trying to figure out and back engineer how the Matrix, how the video game works. Do you think that it is air you are breathing, Neo? You need air to live, limited supply. You need to eat food and drink water, and need sunlight and love. You have limited mobility. You have the ability to use your mind to construct tools, make decisions, interact with the environment. We are constantly told magic isn't real, and only science is acceptable to believe in, as if science has figured everything out. And if you don't want to believe in science, you then accept religion and disregard all other information. But these limitations seem engineered in as if... So if it's not a video game, I'd accept this. If we're not in a video game, then we are an experiment by some, what we would call extraterrestrials, but I would just say people from a higher level. When I say higher level, I don't mean like angelic demons or interdimensional beings. I'm just saying, like, if you ever seen the movie AI, the kid that sees dead people, he's being observed by his creator, who was a human being engineer, robotic engineer, and they observe him. So I think if we're not in a game, then we are going to be an experiment of somebody, and they engineered all these limitations into our life. Because why do we have to breathe? Why do we have to eat? Why do we have to drink? We could just as easily just been made to not have to need to do anything. What is the de facto purpose of life? Darwin said it was to leave the most offspring. Others will also agree and suggest to reproduce and continue the species. I offer a new exciting option. Find the door. Find the way out of the maze. I suggest that this is an advanced obstacle course IQ test, much like in the original Maze Runner, the film, Logan's Run, and Truman Show. There used to be an explorer spirit in mankind, at least in the Americans or the Europeans, and even the Chinese, but it is now gone because we've been told that everything has been discovered. But what if there are additional lands? What if we've been conditioned to believe that everything was discovered so that we would just stay put? Find the door. Westworld Insights. If you haven't seen HBO's Westworld seasons 1 and 2, this particular show has made it so that I haven't really felt the need to make videos lately because Westworld has said everything, metaphorically, that I needed to say. So in Westworld, we are in an experiment, or the robots are, and we are the robots in that show. Westworld's the most red-pilled show I've ever seen, and if you're just watching it as a drama about robots being duped and then trying to escape, you're doing it wrong. I'm baffled that this show was allowed to be made. I finished seasons 1 and 2, and if they haven't and in Westworld, the quest is to find the door. I didn't even think of that till now. So yeah, even in Westworld, just like in Truman Show, Logan's, all those other, find the door is in Westworld. The robots are trying to find the door. Amazing. Find the door. History never happened, but was invented. Now that's kind of like a clickbait headline there, but it seems to me that history we know and understand was invented in the 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s, and I attribute this to the Enlightenment period. So in the 18th century, the European politics, philosophy, science, and communications were radically reoriented during the course of the long 18th century, which is listed as 1685 to 1815. Wow. As part of, you've got to think about that. I missed that the first time reading this. 1685 to 1815 is considered the 18th century and is part of a movement referred to by its participants as the Age of Reason or simply the Enlightenment. The long 18th century. Our time is all jacked up. But during this time period, everything that has been indoctrinated into us is when it was created. So what I mean by that is archaeology begins in 1808, anthropology begins in the 1800s, the first dinosaur bones were discovered in 1824, the King James Bible came out in 1611, Darwinian evolution in 1858, Joan of Arc was canonized in 1920. Someday I'll make a video explaining what that means. The pyramids at Giza were discovered in the 1900s, or excavated. And through all this is where they craft the narrative of human history. But if you look at that definition again, where it says, European politics, philosophy, science, and communications were radically reoriented during the course of the long 18th century. As part of that, we were taught in school that the Enlightenment was the greatest thing that's ever happened to mankind. Age of Reason. Sounds like nice things. But if they completely reinvented reality and wrote the history, created and crafted the narrative, we're believing in a fairy tale. And we've never questioned the sources, and we've always been told to only use authoritative sources when we were in school. Only use authoritative sources. Did you ever question that? Think about that. That is nuts. How many robot androids have you encountered already and not known it? You know, throughout my life, I've suspected that many robots were already in society and walking amongst us. Clones. Also clones. Because there's a lot of people who behave with such predictability. There's also people that I see that are going about doing like background people things. You know, like in films, you see people in the background doing things. And there always seems to be people like doing things in the background of my life that are things that I've never done before. And like I envision the library. So there's always like somebody like looking up the books in the library. I always have like a book agenda when I'm in the library. I go straight to what I'm looking for and that's it. That's not to say that the way I do things is what everybody else has to do, but if you're in a bookstore, I don't know, the bookstores keep coming to my mind. The shopping mall, so many clones in the shopping mall, background people in the shopping malls and in the stores. But there's plenty of other places where there's background people, and I feel like they're just AI bots that were programmed to do certain motions, and they're not real human beings. They're just background. Oh, I know of another one. Theme parks. There's no way people, the quantity of people I see at Disney World, Adventure Island, Universal Studios, it's expensive to go to these parks. I don't know how there's gazillions of people there. And these are the places that could actually potentially create clones. So what if they created all these clones to make it look like the park is populated to launder tons of money through it? Because again, I could barely afford to go to these parks, and I look around at some of the people that are background people at these parks, and I'm thinking, how? You don't even look like you're alive. What occupation could you possibly have to afford to just blow $100 on a park ticket? And if it's not the background people, there's people that you could interact with who have such programmed minds that behave so predictably. You know what their answer is going to be for anything you ask them because they're so status quo. And it's like, if you don't have an individual opinion and you're just a programmed human, how different are you than a clone or a robot? Have an individual opinion. Stand out from the pack. Why be a clone? I often wonder about vacation. Some people, if they go on vacation, they get cloned and the clone returns. So if you see like these attractive vacation packages for such a low price, it's probably a cloning facility. You go, you take a cruise, you get off, you think you're going to the hotel, you're going to the cloning facility, and then your clone gets put back into population. So if you ever wonder if people go to certain vacation locations, get kidnapped, cloned, and the clone reinserted into the population, you know, when people say, you know, that vacation you took, that really changed you. So yeah, people are getting kidnapped and cloned. This is a joke, by the way, but it's to get you to think about people going on vacation and coming back differently. It's like, how did they change so much? And so I ask one more time, if this isn't the Matrix, then what is it? Leave your comments below. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, do the damn thing. And I'll see you next time.